People always asking me all these damn questions, and they so confused. I don't know what to tell them. Why he do this? Why he do that? How you do this? How you do that? Hell yeah, I'm trying to do what I want, and I get good grades. That's why I wear these hats ways. These people recognize that's why they stay up in my face. Cause
Black Mystery Month.
they wanna know my play. They
Hey, yes, Black Mystery Month. And really right now I'm trying to adjust my I don't know. We'll see if this work out. Anyways, what's good, man? Black Mystery Month.
Black Mystery Month.
Yeah, man. People always asking. Hey, so I named it Black Mystery Month is because like there is so much mystery around Black history. Like, first of all, sometimes it goes so fast that it is history. You know, there's so many things, so many contributions that, you know, go unnoticed. And then when you hear it, it's almost like a slap in the face. But it's not just that, man. It's like there's a lot of things that go into this month that is exhausting. It's exhausting just to, you know, think about what you might want to do just to represent. It could be exhausting if you feel like you don't know and you're going to be overwhelmed. I mean, it could be exhausting because this is something that should be represented year round, but we wait to the shortest month of the year. And granted, we have an extra day this year, but you know, this is what we're doing. And so as we're coming into this Lighthouse series, season 6, right? Black Mystery Month. We're gonna give a sweet serenade to trying to understand. we trying to understand how we can make this an actual movement. I think because it is, but how can we make this better, Doc?
Man, I think that we are having conversations that are challenging the narrative. We're countering a narrative because, you know, what I've come to understand about history, it's history means his story.
Mm-hmm.
But who is he? And why do I need to know his story? Why is his story important to me? And so when I look at the stories, I say that you've never told your story. And so for a lot of times in America, we don't tell our story because we're afraid sometimes to make people uncomfortable about our truths. And I think that when you start to talk to people about, you know, subjects that are contentious, it's why do you need a month? Black history is American history. And it's like, okay, but who says this?
Well, so check this out. The problem is things like this. Like, you got to give a disclaimer for everything that you're doing so people won't take offense. You know what I mean? It's like right now, our conversation is meant for us to have a conversation about normal things that we can look at a higher level. And the disclaimer is we're going to talk about it at high levels, low levels, and all levels in between. But the disclaimer is take it as truth and take it as real, but take it as we're just talking. And so as we expound, you know, we need to have a safe space to be able to talk, because when you're confined, you can't necessarily. That's why the psychology happens in barbershops and beauty shops and these areas where people are getting self-care and they finally are able to talk. And that is like the only place sometimes for Black conversations going where they need to go for intellectual stimulation for most people. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, and when you start to talk about the simulation, it's it's different now because as we learn more, we sometimes can take a very jaded perspective if we don't know where we've come from. And knowing that we do stand on the shoulders of giants, it just dawned on me that, I've lived longer than Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. King. I've lived a life that's longer. They both died at 39 years old. Didn't get to see 40.
Right.
I mean, you got people. King was born in 1929. You got people who are still alive that was born in 1929.
Right.
Yeah. He could still be alive if he was not shot. And so one of the things we have to deal with the myths that conceal reality. One of those myths is we live in a colorblind society. This is a lie. It's a lie because we have a colorist society, we have a racist society, there's privileges everywhere, and we don't want to acknowledge them. And
there's a classist society, there's tribalism, because at the end of the day, regardless of what, we know that it exists, but it can be hidden behind classism because there can be Black exceptionalism, Black excellence that can have, you know what I mean? Because you're going to have Black people in areas where they're like, oh, well, if they can do it, you can do it. You're going to have white people in low areas where you can be like, well, we went through that too. And so there's always going to be this whatever hypothetical to be able to throw off what is good and what is bad. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so you know where I'm coming from. I'm not interested in talking about whiteness to white people.
For sure.
My target audience is people who are trying to understand what is happening because what they are seeing doesn't match what you are saying. Right. There's a discrepancy. And I want to explain why that exists. And if we know why the discrepancy exists, then there is no rock that you can hide under. Because
that's Eurocentric versus Afrocentric.
Yeah. And when you start to talk about worldviews, I like to think that, we can operate in multiple worlds, but there has to be a foundational world we see the world from. Because if we try to make some hybrid worldview, half Eurocentric, half Afrocentric, we all know what happens to a house divided. It can't stand.
Hey.
So it can't stand. But I offer the alternative because if we're not told or taught what an Afrocentric worldview looks like, then how can we know if it's something that I would want to adopt or teach or pass on to my children? Because
this is the question that anyone could ask, but that's because there is no true history of Afrocentral thought, right? Like Afrocentric consciousness is being wiped out, and so some people have is intuition of it, and it can come through drum beats, right? It can come through different ways, and we all know that if a beat come on, we know who's gonna be on beat and who's not, and the people who are more on beat or more congruent with an Afrocentric world. And
so
before you finish, because you're right, I'm gonna top this off. Your most popular Eurocentric person nowadays would have to have very unique Afrocentric qualities to be successful.
Yeah. So, for example, an Afrocentric worldview would be it takes a village to raise a child. That's an Afrocentric proverb. It takes a village. In the Eurocentric world, the village is there to be pillaged. You know what I'm saying? It's to be pillaged. And so what
necessary. The village is the village. I found right that the village is necessary for its neighborhood watch.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's always this connotation of safety or fear with the village. Like the village is either for you or against you, and more likely we're just using them as protection. Like let us know type. You know,
And so, so what I don't like is I don't like this idea that the Eurocentric worldview didn't steal from African or Afrocentric worldview. You know, so we can talk about how when the Moors ruled Spain, we can talk about, you know, cultural things like, why have you ever seen a movie about when the Moors ruled Spain?
No, of course not.
Do you know why?
Because I'm going to let you answer, but that's why I call it Black Mystery Month. Go ahead.
Well, the reason you've never seen the Moors, a movie about the Moors, is because we cannot show Black people at that time ruling the world or a country that's prominent as Spain. Because if we show you a Black peoples ruling a nation in Europe, it throws off the myth that you are intellectually inferior. It throws off the myth that you were in some cave under some rock. We don't tell people that one of the first universities of higher learning was in Timbuktu.
Listen,
you know what I'm saying? We don't.
Well, let's not talk about the higher level universities that we as Black people lean on as HBCUs that is foundationally white.
Yeah, and most of them are. And
and at the same time, let's go back to the movie Black Panther. Like, we couldn't even have Black Panther because in that first movie, didn't somebody have to come save them?
But think of this: your first Black superhero, and who they fighting? Each other. So even in the most prominent movie of Black empowerment, we are fighting each other, because in the Eurocentric worldview, we are adversarial to each other.
Hey, in the second one, who did they fight?
They fought the Hispanics. And so
you can't make this shit up.
Hey, I wonder why they wasn't fighting the French or America, whoever.
The most colonized country. Who colonized Africa the most?
Oh man, so when you say the most, be more specific.
Who at this day and age, you're talking like the Lakers and the Celtics type shit right now, man. Who gets the ring for colonizing the most in Africa?
I mean, so there was a Berlin conference where the European nations sat down. I think it was 1888, I believe, and they sit up and they cut Africa up into partitions because they didn't want to fight each other for Africa. So the Belgians got the Congo. So the French have all the nations in Africa that speak French right now. The English have the English colonies. America created Liberia for enslaved Africans. So, and to be clear, the people in Africa now, most have a Eurocentric worldview too. So just because you live in Africa, don't mean you don't have a Eurocentric worldview.
Right, that's what I'm saying, and that's why it's important that you, like you said, we're not saying whiteness, we're saying Eurocentric.
Because
I think that's important, because saying Eurocentric can create a divide for a certain demographic, right? It can say, okay, Eurocentric, but we know that there's homage paid to Europeans and watching the Queen and all this other royalty shit, right? But at the same time, if anybody leans on how this country was made, there was I'm gonna say like the young kids right now, they were standing on business of how they didn't give a shit about what Europe was doing like that anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so, but the thought is that just because you don't like your daddy and your mama, that don't mean that you ain't turning to them in some way or fashion.
Oh yeah.
So like the Southern accent itself is a long drawn out English accent.
Yeah, and then you talk about the crown jewels. Like, where did the crown jewels come from?
Africa, somewhere. Exactly.
Yeah. If you look at the coat of arms for a lot of those European nations with that lion, how many lions are in England and United Kingdom? Where are lions indigenous to?
I don't know a bunch of lions that live there, but I know a bunch of liars.
No, what I'm saying is that lions are indigenous to Africa.
Listen, I know that, man.
So,
And that's
so if a lion is indigenous to Africa, why are they on the coat of arms for European households?
well, you know, I had a thought. God, you got to forgive me for this, but I had a thought. Who is the apex predator on the planet?
Humans.
Humans, right? Specifically, who does most of it? Who does most of the actual hunting?
Eurocentric. Well, it depends. So
No. People who need to survive by hunting. Now, who does it for sport more?
there you go. And that's what I was going to say. I was going to differentiate, but one of the things that I'm seeing happening is that you can only plagiarize for so long, because eventually I'm going to ask you to cite your sources. And so what I understand is this: if you want to talk about Western, Eurocentric and Western thought can be synonymous. And when you look at the philosophers in Western thought, when you talk about Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, Schopenhauer, Hegel, like all these philosophers, yeah, they did, but they come from a place where if somebody asks you, name me 3 Afrocentric philosophers right now, well, who are they? Are we studying Afrocentric thought and philosophies? Did we understand that if I'm only telling you about these thinkers and I'm leaving out these other thinkers, then how are you going to be able to understand or conceptualize Afrocentric thought if you don't know Afrocentric philosophers?
Well, that's the whole point. That's the whole point right now of eliminating any connection to it. That was the whole point from the get-go. That's why we speak more about Egypt, and even at some point in time, your most highest conscious Black people might have known about Kemet, but people who thought they knew would say Egypt instead of Kemet. That's because of the work that was done to hide everything. Black Mystery Month.
And when you talk about these hidden things, something is only a mystery until it is revealed.
Right. At this time, we can't. I know I'm interrupting you. At this time, just like you said, we can't hide it anymore, though. And this is where the mental model myopia is coming in for me, where I'm like, hey, hold on now. Hold up. Do you not see this? Here's what's happening. Here's what you believe. Here's what you're fighting against the truth. And you actually don't benefit from fighting against the truth. And I'm using this all in analogy because what we end up doing is telling the same old story, because we aren't able to cite the true sources because the sources are trying to be erased. But at the same motherfucking time, I can't say nothing out my fucking mouth without somebody trying to tell me to cite somebody else. And it's like, the shit is so stupid because I can go find it. But even if I find it, still gonna have some gut hypothetical of, oh, well, because in science, true scientists know that you don't prove shit in science. You only convince.
Yeah, and I think that even the idea to Egypt. So if we have to draw a line, to me, when you say Egypt, it's a Eurocentric idea and worldview, because the Greeks, the Macedonians, once they invaded, they're the ones who changed the name from Kemet to Egypt. And so this is around 525 BC. And so when you start to talk about sources in history, one of the things is this: it says that every story, this is an African proverb, every story, it says, until the lion learns how to write, every story will glorify the hunter. And so when you start to talk about this, we now have the power of the pen. And we can now counter the narrative and the lies. And so the thing is this, out of the mouth of every 2 or 3 witnesses, let everything be established. So a source is a witness. See, if you're on trial for murder and there's only one witness, the courts have said we cannot put you to death under only one witness testimony, because that could be unreliable. See, any one person can be unreliable. So I am going to look for witnesses or sources, because it's the same thing, to validate externally my conjecture, assumptions, so that I'm not just resting on my own laurel. I'm not trying to convince you with my argument. I'm using Dr. Henry Clark's argument. I'm using Dr. Ben Jacob's argument. I'm using arguments from Imhotep from Egypt. I'm using arguments that have been foundational. And so when you start to talk about foundational truths, then you get into the realm that I like to stay away from. You get into the realm of believing. See, people will die for what they believe, not for what they know. You die for what you believe. And these are assumptions. And some of the times they can be faulty beliefs. Like you go to Iraq and you think you're fighting for freedom and justice for Iraq, but you're not. You're fighting to make Halliburton more money. But I can't, but I'm not going to risk your life for some oil.
All right. So I remember being aircraft maintenance. It had to be about 2007, 2008. Bush was in office. And, you know, as a maintainer on heavies, I mean, we were getting deployed to Balad more often than not, maybe Afghanistan. But Balad was where it was at for us. And I remember somebody of the pale complexion, a friend of mine. And I only say a friend because I don't have any enemies. And if I do, I already know who you are. So, you know, and he said, I'm ready to deploy because that's good tax, but that's good tax-free money. And I want my Republican in office because they're always going to raise my pay. And I remember thinking that you really just have some people who don't care, man. They're just out here. They know what's going on, and they care less.
Well, self-interest is a powerful motivator. But, you know, when you add Eurocentric worldviews, we have to add capitalism in there because capitalism came from Europe. It's a Eurocentric idea. But the problem with capitalism is it creates moral mercenaries. Meaning my morals can be sold to the highest bidder. Meaning I don't have any moral that this dollar won't buy for me. Meaning my morals, meaning like the movie In This Proposal, right? Here's $1 million. Let me sleep with your wife. Because we don't have morality in the West. We have interest. Like America doesn't have allies. America has interest. So we could be friends with Syria one day with Assad, and we could be bombing them the next day because our interests changed. And see, when you understand the Eurocentric worldview, what you have to understand is that they are moral monsters. And I don't mean monster in a negative connotation. I mean monster is this idea that nobody is illegal on stolen property or land. And as you see, the Eurocentric worldview is takers. They're takers. They take you from Africa and bring you somewhere else because it serves their interests, because you are capital. And I think, and
I think from a Eurocentric mindset, everything has a price.
Yes.
Like everything has a price. And I think when we start to now talk about what's the difference, I think the difference would be we talk about, you know, no diss to it, but the Euro mindset comes from a place of scarcity.
It does.
And the Afrocentric mindset comes from a place of abundance, and everybody can get some. You know what I mean? Like, and it's about goodness, happiness, or it's about that drama. But I would love to believe that if and back in the day, if the African mind knew what the Eurocentric mind was doing, would they still sell the slaves the same way? Because we know that that existed in certain ways, but not big enough to where you can't incentivize people to do things that are immoral, because we know that these things happen. So I'm not creating an excuse or reason, but what I'm saying is, if the true definition today was known of what would happen, if we had an African Marty McFly, we'll call him, I don't know, insert name there, because I was gonna say some shit, right? Like, what would they do, right? What would they do? Well, because you would have to understand that if things would have been done different, we would know exactly what the difference is.
Yeah, and so I'll give you three of what I think are the biggest differences. First difference is this: the Afrocentric worldview sees the stranger as neighbor. So because of abundance, because of resource, because of culture, when an alien, which means foreigner, when an alien comes into your land, they are treated with hospitality. So when Columbus came, they invited him to dinner. And in his diary the next day, he said they will make great slaves. So in their mind, he's already saying, I can exploit their hospitality. The Eurocentric mind sees the stranger as danger. When they see the stranger, they're like, put up the wall, build the fence, keep them out of my property. That's the first difference. The second difference that I would say, as far as, and these aren't in order, but the second difference is our cultural understanding of what to do with deviant people in a society. So for example, in Africa, they did not use the prison systems. They didn't have prisons in Africa. They didn't even have a word for prison. The concept was foreign to them. They thought isolating people from the society did not help them. But the Eurocentric mentality was put them in the dungeon, put them in the tower, lock them away, put them on the Hell's Island, put them on, segregate deviant behavior from the regular people. And so that is a fundamental difference, because I don't think that locking you in a cage helps you to society, because you're going to come out of that cage a better criminal. So what the African culture did was said, listen, how do we handle deviant behavior? Well, we make sure that there is more incentive to do what we say, because you have the protection of the community. And that was a powerful thing. And so the last thing that I think is a major difference is religion. Religion is a big difference. So in Europe, they build cathedrals. They build these big monuments, because the bigger the monument in the custom, the more powerful your deity was. Where in Africa, they could have a little small statue that was from their family that is just as significant, symbolic as that big cathedral you built over there. And so when you look at a culture and you say these people are backwards and small because they ain't building these big buildings to their gods, then you have to understand you're conceptualizing God differently, because in the African culture, the God was not this abstract idea. And so that is a big difference that we don't reconcile, and we have to reconcile, because the awakening or being woke in your roots, it's like saying, I want to go to the source first and then see how it deviated. And if we don't do that, we get lost.
Let me ask you a question. Is Afrocentric spiritualism, religion, more individualistic or more group oriented?
So it depends. So you have different cultures in Africa. Let's say the Yoruba tribe is the Yoruba people in Africa have a very orthodoxy approach to religion. But then you start to see a lot of the culture. You have Muslims there. You have, I mean, it's not a monolithic system of belief.
Right.
And in some issues, I mean, Christianity is big in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Catholicism is big in Africa.
Right.
And so when you start to look at the intersection of these cultural ideas, you're seeing that this also was plagiarized too. And when you start to look at cultures, like for example, if you look up the story of Heru, Heru, and you look at his life, you will see he died at 33. He had 12 disciples. He was born on Christmas. There was a star that signified his birth. There was, you know what I'm saying? The story is said, it's the same story.
Same story.
It's the same story. So you can still believe in Jesus if you want to, because it's just you call him Jesus, I say Heru. But we get caught up in this idea that Jesus is a Eurocentric idea.
Right, created where?
Well, I mean, so when you say created, you could make an argument that the Council of Nicaea, this is around the 3rd century BCE, was when the church, the Roman Catholic Church, first decreed that Jesus is in fact the Son of God. Because it wasn't a self-evident truth that Jesus was the Son of God. Many people thought, like the Muslims thought, Jesus was just a prophet.
A prophet.
That's what they religion as. So I talk to people a lot of times, and I was having a conversation the other day about somebody, the stories in the Bible. I say, look, these are stories. It's not a world history book, because world history does not line up with these stories. They don't. Because, like, for example, if you look at a very simple example is like this. We believe, or it is believed in the Christian faith, that Abraham is the father of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Mm-hmm. When was Abraham born? Like in what year? 20 BC. 2,000 years before Christ was born, Abraham was born, right? He is the father of these faiths, allegedly. Right. But then his grandson, Jacob, later changed his name to Israel. When was he born? Hundreds of years later.
Right.
So if he's born hundreds of years later, well, what was going on in these stories? It doesn't line up. Right. And there's inconsistencies, and we have been told to just take it by faith.
Right.
And I tell people all the time, faith only exists because you don't know. Faith is a mystery. But once you know, faith ain't needed.
What's more important, trust or love?
Contextually, what do you mean?
I mean, because
I don't want to rack and stack them, because I feel like it's contextual.
It is contextual, but the reason that I ask you is because from certain religious standpoints, there is an ask for love and trust. And I feel like there is somewhat of a hustler con mentality to it, because it's a play on emotions and it's a play on the unknown, right? And so I feel like from a Eurocentric mindset, with the evangelical type standpoint, like Christianity has been used to either separate, we'll say eliminate, and compensate off availability and opportunity. Because that story, Jesus life story, it makes sense to wanting to feel better, right? And so religion, I feel, has been put in this place to explain the unknown, to manage the morality and the community in a way that not one person can. And so you have to be accountable to something that's bigger than us, right? But these are places where you can use it as a weapon, and we know that's been done.
And so you talk about these issues, and I say social cohesion is important to any society. Mm-hmm. And see, the slave and the slave master can't have the same God. It's impossible. Because if I'm praying for freedom and you're praying to keep me in bondage, well, somebody ain't gonna get it. So And so nobody tells you to love your enemies that don't want to do you wrong. See, this thinking is so problematic, because if I am to love people who are trying to destroy me, then I am at a strategic disadvantage because they don't love me. And I'm not saying that when you talk about love, I have conceptualized it a little differently. See, to me, love, I don't care about if you love somebody or not. That's irrelevant to me. What I am concerned with is, what are you doing as a result of that? Meaning,
all right. No, I want to stop. I had a thought. I started that love thing and I had a thought. The Holy Trinity. That's a European concept.
Well, it's an Afrocentric concept that was morphed into European concept. So the Holy Trinity is mother, father, child.
That and the reason that I said that is because the Holy Trinity, as it's thought, is the Father, Son, Holy Ghost. They eliminated the woman,
and that's important.
And follow me in, because I know you're gonna come in hot. The woman, the divine feminine, is more about intuition.
Yes.
Right. And so as we talk about intuition and what we're talking about, because of consciously being tied to a certain type of energy, right? We talk about sight and sources and stuff. And the only reason I'm mentioning this because we could speak to things that we talk about with the consilience. Yeah. Consilience meaning what? The collection of science and history together, right? Understanding where we are now. Where we are now. The only reason I talk about where we are now is because we can understand what religion has done and what it is doing. But to eliminate the female from the spiritual, knowing that the female houses the spiritual. Bro, what is that about?
Bro, let's unpack that.
Spiritual and religious thing. Why was that? Ooh.
Just give me 2 minutes. Okay.
2 minutes. You got it. You got it.
Just give me 2 minutes. Listen. Okay. It is illogical and nonsensical to think that woman was created from the rib of a man. Biology and my eyes that I can see tells me that man come out of a woman's womb. I don't need, if you want to debate that, we can, but use your eyes and go to a maternity ward and see where that child came from. She comes from her. It's called Mother Earth, Mother Nature for a reason. The mother, and so the reason the difference is this. The Eurocentric worldview is a patriarchal society, meaning that the king can only rule, the male can rule, his son can rule. So how do I instill in the African mind the removal of the mother? I have to replace her, because once I replace her, I can now allow my worldview to enter into your mind, because I devalue my woman. I don't let my woman vote. I don't let my woman do anything. In Africa, the difference is the king could not rule without the consent of the woman. In Africa, the woman could rule. There was women kingdoms. The woman king, there were women who ruled nations. So when a woman can rule a nation, what does it say to the Eurocentric worldview? That's problematic, because now I have to take her power. Now, why is this important for us? Is because the woman is, let's take a second for this. The men go to battle, but the women tell them when to fight. We fight for her. We fight because of her.
Now, this happens to this day, by the way.
Yes, we fight because of her. We go out and get money to impress her. We are essentially trying to tap into that energy that only she can provide, but it has been suppressed in her. Because if she understood the divinity in her, that she can bring life, two can become one because of her. And when we understand her power, they had a problem in the South with the institution of slavery. And I say this as an admonition, not as a critique, is that slavery wouldn't have worked without her. It wouldn't have worked because we stayed for her. We endured for her.
Right.
Because she was the one who comforted us in that time.
Right.
And I think because of this culture, the Trinity is problematic for several reasons. One is because if you try to conceptualize the idea, you're going to have a problem like the virgin birth. See, the problem with the virgin birth is they didn't read the Hebrew. The Hebrew didn't say she was a virgin, it said she was a maiden. If you look at the Hebrew word, it didn't say she was a virgin. It said she was a maiden, meaning, and when you see the word, it's like this. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. There has not been any other people who have had an immaculate conception, but in mythology there is. The original god of Egypt, the first god in Egypt was called Atum, A-T-U-M. Kind of sound familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Atum, he was connected with the sun. The sun in this time was God. And then when you start to see the conceptualization of we are not going to reinvent the wheel, these are great stories because everybody needs an origin story. You have to have a creation story. But when you take her out of the story and then you replace her, what you have done is you have created instability in the true Trinity. Because once again, the house divided cannot stand. And when we start to empower, elevate, and esteem her, it contradicts Eurocentric ideologies, which is why, and especially in America, Black women, the most educated, most degrees, highest payroll, the Black men are the only men in this country whose women make more money than they do. White males make more than white women. Hispanic males make more than Hispanic women. We're the only demographic. And that is very important because as the male to be the provider has been challenging because we have systems that have elevated the woman at our detriment. Because now, psychologically, she feels because of my status, have to have a man who can meet me here. Not knowing you have to, if you can, you, queen, can take this peasant and put him on the freaking throne because you have the skills.
And that's important that you say that.
She will make you brush your teeth and wash your butt.
Exactly. But that's the beauty of a woman. That's the beauty of a woman, right? And like being able to understand what they actually do for you. Oh, and so that's why we see this overcompensation right now. I'm going to speculate, right? That's why we see this hyper masculinity in women because they have to do it. And there's a cognitive dissonance that goes along with that because I would say that for every woman that I've met that was hyper masculine like that did not truly want to be like that only for the sake of having a Eurocentric mind of being successful because of lack of resources. And when I say lack of resources, you can say that's subjective, but the lack of resource of knowing that they have that there's truly no savior but themselves in their mind.
Yeah, I mean, and so when you start to go to our history, the average enslaved woman produced 10 children. The average, about 10. And when you start to understand that when we started to get freed, we didn't get freed psychologically. We were not free psychologically because there was no tools. There's a great book called White Architects of Black Education from 1865 to 1954. Great book. And when you start to see that when you are educated by your enemy, you will not be educated. You will be indoctrinated to not critically think, to accept what you're told. And, You know, what I tell people is this. I say, listen, I understand that it can be jarring to people to hear that one of the first slave ships that come to America from Africa was called Jesus. Called Jesus. One of the first slave ships was called Jesus. And I'm telling you this, man. Listen, I'm gonna hit you with, you ready for my cocky explanation? Are you ready? Are you ready? Listen. If Jesus Christ could save you, they would have never told us his name. Let me say it one more time. If Jesus Christ could save you, they would have never told us his name.
That is crazy. Because hey, listen, for the record, you look like a samurai.
Hey.
Anyway.
King Lo said, save yourself. For everything else, get a thumb drive.
Oh, King Los. King Los.
And so we have misunderstood. Let me just say my explanation. We have misunderstood what salvation means. Okay, let me break it down. The root word in the Greek is sotoro, meaning to be delivered, meaning to be transferred. So, for example, if I am drowning, I am not saved if you throw me a life raft. I'm only saved when I get back into the boat.
Right.
So we have a life raft, but we ain't back on the boat.
So Jesus is the life raft?
No. Jesus became what the Afrocentric mind needed. Because it was our story. They just told us our story from their worldview. So I'm going to tell you your story from my vantage point.
So I'm going to tell you what you want to hear.
Yes, and it resonates with you because it's your story.
Hey, man, talk about the biggest player in the world, right? So why can't we get over the hump? And I'm that's rhetorical, because at this point in time, I think both of the mindsets, the frameworks, work together. Because I think in a world right now, a Eurocentric mind without an Afrocentric congruence is a lame person. And they all know it now. I mean, you can tell by the TikTok dances, right? And I'm just saying, like, we all live in a world where one kind of based on who you are.
Yeah. But there's a lot to that, man. So if I was put on the spot, I would say the number one reason is the sunken cost bias.
Ooh.
We have invested hundreds of years into this worldview. Grandmama believed it. Listen, do you know why Black people were Jehovah's Witnesses? I'm gonna tell you, the primary reason that Black people were Jehovah's Witnesses is because Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate no holidays. That's a great religion if I ain't got no money for my kids.
Oh, yeah. You're not lying about that one.
And so when I look at the utility of it, I'd say, listen, I refuse to take something from somebody and not replace it, because that makes me a criminal. Psychologically, I'm a criminal.
Wrongful appropriation.
So keep I mean, listen, I have no problem with anybody wanting to pray to Jesus. Hey, if that got you doing better, psychologically, the reason most people convert to religion at their lowest state is because psychologically you're more impressionable and vulnerable when you are low. So it's like I'm a salesman and the product sells itself. You're not feeling happy? Come to get some, Jesus will make it better. And it's like, great, I need it to be better. And so I'm not saying that that's a problem. It's helpful.
Listen, why does it sell itself though?
Okay, because there is a necessity to understand things that we are not supposed to.
Everybody, okay, so that would be a cognitive distortion And let me tell you why. Labeling.
Yes.
Extreme labeling for every single thing is a cognitive distortion. And so now this is where the smartest, most intelligent people become evil, because they start playing on people's weakness.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so dangerous. And if you are unprivileged enough to have people who rely on that, which we all have our faith in some sort of way, but
man, it's a business. It's a business. You got people who their light bill is due, and instead of paying their light bill, they want to give money to the church. Like, bruh, pay your light bill. Well, I'd be like, why does the pastor ask you for money, but then tell you to pray for your help? Won't he pray? Because he ain't stupid. You can't pray your bills on faith. But that's the thing. Faith was never designed to operate. Faith was only designed to be a placeholder until knowledge came. But knowledge never came, so we had to keep the faith.
Do you believe in energy?
Positive.
Okay, so does tithing to a church reverently, without any ill will, provide good energy to the person that's just trying to give? Or is that them being ignorant?
You know, the scripture says, man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at your heart. And so how do I look at your heart? How can I see Kalvin's heart right now?
That's an amazing question. I think you would have to look at everything that I've done, and you would have to scrutinize that, to try to determine whether it's.
You want me? Hey, you want me to give you a quick little little shortcut? Hey, you want me to give you a shortcut? Know what's on somebody's heart?
No, I don't. I don't want to know what I think you're going to say, but it might be something different. Go ahead.
Hey, listen. When you talk about the heart, you have to understand that your money and your heart are not separated. You can't separate show me what you spend your money on, and I'll show you what's on your heart. Without fail. Because your money, what you represent, is your time and your energy, to your point. What you get with your time and spend with your money on represents you like nothing else, because your labor provided it. So show me. That's like, I see a dude, he got a $60,000 truck, but live with his mama. Where's his heart at? In that truck.
Mobb Deep had a song called that. Where's your heart at?
So like I said, show me what you spend your money on, and I will show you what's on your heart. You can't separate the two. And when you save your money, guess where your heart is at?
In a low interest savings account.
No. When you save your money, your heart is in the future.
No. Hear me out.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you. And so what I would like to do is take that same energy about saving.
Oh, let's get it.
So man, we talked about a lot, we got to cut your ass off. But that's only because you're a wealth of knowledge, sir. And we'll say APY. And what APY really means is those high yield savings accounts. And I think it's like 4 to 5 is high. And so if your money is just sitting around doing nothing, you might want to put it in one of those high yield savings accounts that can get you some money as it's just sitting. Now, I don't have any paid sponsors right now, but until we do some research. There's some very easy ways to put your money in some high yield accounts, those high yield savings accounts. Find them as you're scrolling, find them. Put your money in places to make them work for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Make it work.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I have a really good book, man. About what we're talking about. One of the things I've tried to find is the mystery, because we're talking about mystery. And in order to get the mystery, you have to reject something.
Yeah.
And see, I can't show you how to get there. All I can do is show you why you ain't.
Why you ain't there?
I can show you because, like, when we were talking about this, can you read that?
Hell no. All right, hold on. Let me read it. Suggestions on the religious instruction of the Negroes in the southern states. Together, come on, keep it here now. Together with an appendix containing forms of church registers, forms of a constitution, and plans of different denominations of Christians.
Now, if I told you this book was written in the 1850s and we still practice this today, this book, if you go to a church service today, they're still doing it how it was written, suggested how they do it. See, the black clergy were the first, the black clergy in America were the first
converters.
Well, no, they were the first people that were trusted by the white power structure to give instruction to the other Negroes.
They had to be so what I'm hearing is there had to be some sort of indoctrination for them to be trusted.
Yes. And so one of the first, and you can look this up, one of the first black preachers in America, the first ordained black preacher in America, only preached one message. And so it was a message.
What message was that? That wasn't that 3-6 Mafia message.
No, this message was essentially, he wanted all the enslaved people to know that they were sinners. Because see, once I tell you, see, we fundamentally misunderstood what a sin is. The word for sin is hamatra, which means a missing of the mark, meaning you shot at something, you didn't hit it, you missed it. One of the things that I've learned is not only have we missed the mark, we ain't even aiming at it. Like the mark is over here and we like this, but the mark over there. And not only do we miss it, we don't even know we're missing it because the people told us you hit it. It's that false positive. And when I like to talk about these issues, because I want to say this for the record, man, because I think that when we start to be awakened, we stop, and this is Baldwin, man. Baldwin says, look, as soon as you become educated, you begin to question the system that educated you. Meaning, once you educated, you begin to look at how I was educated. And then Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the founder of Negro History Week, Black History Month, said that the Negro was miseducated. Now, why is Carter G. Woodson important? He is the only black person in history, the only black person in history to earn a Ph.D. in history whose parents were enslaved. It's only one. One dude. He's the only one ever. His parents were enslaved in this country. He got a Ph.D. from Harvard. Nobody else has done that. So when he talks, I think it's kind of important to hear him, you know? And right. He wrote a book called The Miseducation of the Negro. And if you understand you were miseducated, and the question then becomes is, why was I miseducated? Because if I was truly educated, I would reject everything you told me about me. Mm-hmm. Because my self-image cannot be connected to what you think of me. I'm not concerned. And it's going to cause frustration in people who want to continue to believe the lie. Because the lies are comforting. It removes the cognitive dissonance.
Right.
Because when I talk to people who have the shared belief, I say, listen, if you are listen, you know why rich people don't talk about going to heaven?
Because they ain't heaven now.
You ever heard a rich person talk about going to heaven? Can't wait to die because they go to heaven. You know why poor people always talk about going to heaven? because they live in hell now. They live in hell now.
And that and I think that's where the final thought will come in there, good doc. Like, the mystery is us as Black people, but us as people, period. We don't know what we don't know until we know it. And me and you are in places right now where you're showing me things. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm privileged enough to be able to send you things, and you be like, oh, that's dope.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but I think this is important at a time where I don't think a lot of things shock us now unless it's like up there. You know what I mean? It's like, oh
yeah.
You know, and
but iron is sharpening iron. That's what we're doing. We're sharpening each other. We're sharpening each other, and we're supposed to do. And so one of the things that I see happening is that there is definitely, to your point earlier, is that we are starting, I think, to really conceptualize. Because see, my thought is that we're never, like, the whole go back to Africa thing is cool. I get that. But like, our people are here. The cemeteries, we bled for this land. It's like the highest claim you can make to a land is your blood in that soil. Because once you spill blood in that soil, it becomes yours. And I think what we have seen happen is this movement, this awakening is happening. And the reason that the revolution will not be televised is because it starts here first.
Yeah.
It starts here first.
Well, let this be our kickoff of a Black History Month for 2024.
Let's get it.
R.I.P. Carl Weathers, Apollo Creed.
Joe Madison died too, man.
Joe Madison,
yeah. Powerful brother.
I was thinking about the number 24, R.I.P. Kobe. But in these times, I always want to make sure that we understand that, we're here to provide some light, some guidance. And we talk about a lot of random things that we feel like. And I honestly feel like if somebody wanted to like bring up something that we could talk about, we could do it. But, past that, we give you this insight to make you not worry, because anxiety is about worrying about the future. Depression is about thinking about the past. We just want to be present. And as we be present, we just want to, get this information out. And once we get the information out, we tell you, you don't have to worry about it. So with that, we're going to say we out here. Man, I'm so glad. Ham, do some of your administrators. I'm going to play this for a second and do some check some likes and stuff. Make sure we good. And, we'll see y'all later. We're out here on Objectively Aggressive presents the Lighthouse series.
Hey, you already know who it is. KJ. Hey, for all those people in my business. Hey, don't worry about me. Hey. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Hey, you ain't got to worry about me. Don't worry about me, cause I ain't worried about shit. 2 fingers in the air and I'm out this bitch, so don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Hey, you ain't got to worry about me. Don't worry about me, cause I ain't worried about shit. 2 fingers in the air and I'm out this bitch. I'm leaving these people breakfast while eating niggas for breakfast. The flow is so reckless. The shawty touching my necklace. The wrist is so costly. My ear is so frosty. I'm shaking these haters off me. Keeping it cold like coffee. You banging this through your speaker, then the shit is off the meter. I ain't trying to pull with the bullshit like I'm a preacher. But shawty, it's nice to meet you. Shawty say she a teacher and shit. I like brains, so shawty, where can I reach you? Cause I'm sick with it, slick with it, cut-headed with the dick, quick with it, cause I'm sick with my lines, I'm quick with my mind, but at the same time, I get sick of these hoes, I'm sick from the dough, but shit, you already know, cause these people always asking me all these damn questions, and I don't lose, so I guess I am the champion. Catch me on this beat, yes, I'm sealing and stamping it. You don't like it, you can't stand it, don't worry about it.